Hello, here we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring through this ongoing series of videos his philosophy, his disillusionism, and his misalgic theory about human behavior. And we are looking week after week at the news. We are looking at current affairs for a source of philosophical inspiration and illustration. We are now already in April 2021. Still under the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are looking at a particular bit of news these days, which has to do with the patents of the vaccines devised and introduced that were created and are being created to counter the ongoing pandemic. And the news comes specifically from the United States, where congressmen have asked the president to release this intellectual property in order to help third world countries or stuff like that. But we are going to take advantage of this situation to analyze from a philosophical point of view, I repeat, intellectual property and how it correlates with illusions, sleepwalking, and other mainstays of Mookie's system.
Well, first of all, let me remind everybody that patents is what we call intellectual property. Now, when patents and copyright and trademarks, we all heard those words. And when we mean intellectual property, we first have to understand what means property. Okay, basically, at the beginning, when I had my house, the only way for me to assert ownership is to be there and to defend it if somebody wants to take it. And in the case I left for some reason, maybe to the fields, to tend the fields and come back, and there's somebody in my house, to eject them out of the house. Of course, that was the law of the strongest. I mean, the people who took the house have bigger armies or help. Then, of course, that was my property. It's not anymore my property. Of course, then the community understood, or it was clear that if somebody takes your house, then they will take my house. So I better come to your help. And then the community helped preserving that property. But with the coming of the state had to, the illusion had to justify itself. And one of the ways to justify itself is saying, well, we'll make everybody, we'll take violence out of the equation, and there will be a register. You will come, you will put your name, Mookie Tenembaum owns this house, okay? So if tomorrow Florencio Nocetti wants to get my house, either has to buy it from me, yes? If he tries to take it over, and maybe he's stronger than me, he will, but I will call the authorities. That means a guy with a gun, yes? I mean, let's make it clear. The state illusion works only because there is a guy with a gun, okay? One gun or many guns or many guys, but one guy with a gun is the guarantee. That means the police, with the monopoly of power, the monopoly of violence, not of power but of violence, they will come and eject you from the house and left me staying in my house. So this is for real estate property. Yes. Then we have, of course, property that is less. Of course, we can register a car, but I wouldn't register my shirts. Yes. So if somebody takes my shirt, it will be much harder for me to prove that the shirt was mine. And of course, it's less important because if somebody takes my shirt, it's not that they take my house. So, but the way we dealt with property, then came the idea of intellectual property. If I write a book, yes, and tomorrow somebody goes and copies my book and sells my book, I lose my rights on the book. And when we want to talk about specifically patents, so if I come up with an idea and a way to implement it, that's not enough an idea. An idea cannot be patented. You need a way to implement it. And you want to implement the idea, you have to, you can register a patent, okay? It's a very complicated thing to do. People normally cannot register their own patent. They could register the copyright for a song, that's quite easy. But they cannot register, they cannot register a patent. The patent is very complicated, it has very tough rules, and in fact, patent lawyers are a specialty. No other lawyer can probably deal with patents unless they really specialize in the matter. So what's the advantage of the patent? Well, the advantage is I know that if I invest money in an idea and I try to make it work, and I write the patent, if tomorrow somebody will come and copies what I've done, that person will have to either yield, stop doing it, or pay me royalties, depending on the situation. But I know that my investment is insured. Now, we're talking about intellectual property, okay? There is nothing to see, but the patent itself is the only physical thing. But let me remind everybody else, we're talking about illusions, yes? It is the state, and the reason this works is because there is a guy with a gun. There is no guy with the gun. Patents are useless. Of course, people will come and copy, and I could do nothing, show them the paper. That wouldn't work. So this is the situation of the patent. Now, when we talk about the vaccines, we're talking about companies who invested huge amount of money, huge, to get that vaccine, to get to the vaccine. And some, we know some of them were successful, some of them were not successful. Sanofi, a very huge company in France, one of the biggest vaccine makers in the world, did not succeed. And they invested huge amount of money. So there is a risk when you do it. And since there is a risk, and since you're risking a lot of money and your chance to get it through the FDA, in this case in the USA, or the European drug administration, or whatever what they call the medication something, the European association, if you don't get it through them, your patent is worth zero, nothing. You cannot do anything with that. So once they get it through, they can make a lot of money. And this is the whole idea. They should make a lot of money because they're risking a lot of money. Now, just one more point that I think I have to make. Yesterday or today, Stanford University came out with and published the components, how the Pfizer vaccine is made. They took a little bit, they found some vial with a little bit of liquid, they analyzed it and says it contains the following thing. And it was all published in GitHub, a place where you can publish anything and it's already published. But it's like saying how to make a chocolate, I don't know, a famous chocolate cake. Well, it's made of chocolate and flour and water and butter. Yeah, but that's not enough. I mean, how to make it is much harder, and that's to make the simile. It's like making a vaccine. This is not helping anybody. This is just to tell you that there is no Coca-Cola or rat poison or something. But it doesn't help you to make a vaccine. Just to make, because people may read it and may think now it's totally public.
You have the ingredients, but you don't have the recipe, right?
That is correct. So what do you say, Florencio?
I see how this correlates with the main idea of disillusionism, that we have actual individuals doing very concrete stuff, intertwined with structures that are completely abstract and have an ethical side to them, like states, like companies. But in the end, you have actual guys doing very concrete stuff. And what I want to ask you is that we usually speak about these individual guys as if they were sleepwalking, as if they were acting without care, without making decisions, without suffering, just sleepwalking through life. And I want to ask you about the part, the guarantees or the trust in the guarantees that exist for property, actual material property, as you used in your examples, my house, my clothing, but specific these abstract intellectual properties. How do these guarantees play a part in our ability to sleepwalk, which in this case is not important, but in their ability to sleepwalk when we are speaking about the scientists and the technicians that are responsible for the development of these vaccines? So how do they sleepwalk, and do they need to sleepwalk through the process?
Well, illusions in general are necessary to sleepwalk. But again, there is always a tacit thing of a guy with a gun behind it. So let's say this: I'm this guy John Smith, who lives in Orlando and goes to work for the vaccine for Pfizer or for whoever he goes, and he gets in the morning at 7 in the morning, and he leaves the house, and the house he knows that when he will come back from work, there will be somebody. There will be, it will not be somebody else living in his house. There will be no squatters. And if there will be squatters, he can call the police and they will be kicked out quite soon. And if not, he can go to a court, but he will always have a remedy. His house is going to be his house. So he takes his car, and he's also, he travels with his car. All of this done while sleepwalking. Yes. So he can sleepwalk going into the car, knowing that the car, nobody will take his car from the parking without him getting the car back, or has an insurance policy. Who also, so insurance policies, illusions, all of them help to sleepwalk. And while you sleepwalk, you don't suffer. So remember, the idea, the basic idea of the human beings, the only thing we do is running away from suffering. Can we sleepwalk? Good enough. There is no suffering. So now he goes to work at his laboratory, and there is a building, and there are all the machines that are paid by the investors who took a loan from a bank. Okay, everybody knows that the loans are guaranteed by the work that is going to be done, and that work is going to be done is going to have a patent, and that patent will be there to guarantee the loan from the bank. Now, if the patent, after the whole story, the patent goes, President Biden, I don't know if he has the authority, I don't think so, but whoever decided make a law and take those patents away and give it to countries in need, you can do that once. The next time, the bank will not lend you the money to the pharmaceutical company. The pharmaceutical company is not going to invest. The whole thing will break, and the guy who's paying the mortgage of his house will not have money to pay the mortgage. So the whole chain of sleepwalking that is done, because that ends in a vaccine. The vaccine is 99.9999% sleepwalking, and just one or two creative stuff. Really, that's how it works. We all know that. When you make a building, when you see a building, how much of this building was done sleepwalking? Almost everything. Maybe there is a guy who says, "Oh, maybe let's put the staircase on the right instead of the left." I don't know what they do, or let's do it this way or that way. And that takes about 5 seconds, and then from then on, everybody else sleepwalks. Everybody sleepwalks. When you go to a restaurant, yes, you choose from a menu. There is a moment of choice. From there on, everybody sleepwalks until the pancakes gets on your table. I love pancakes. That's not the example was not a coincidence. Anyway, so I hope that answers your questions, Florencio.
Yes, it absolutely does. No, but I was going about something in your faith is here to destroy the fabric.
I will repeat
confidence than to restore
what you're saying.
Once it's broken.
Let me repeat what you're saying, because I think you broke up.
No,
you were saying you need faith. Yes, the answer is the whole thing is based on faith, but at the end, the faith is guaranteed by the guy with the gun. Okay, so if somebody wants to come with a patent, there is a guy with a gun who will not allow it. Okay, if there is no guy in the gun at the end, there is no faith. You see, faith in God, you don't need a guy with a gun. There is no gun there, but there is, yes, but he could punish you. He could do terrible things to you, the God, the people believe in. So here is the same. You have to believe. There may be not even a guy with a gun anymore. It's enough that you think there is a guy with a gun. That's it. That's enough. But what I'm trying to say, I want to say, is it you can live without any of the phases. You can decide a certain company will not allow to do business. So there will be another company who will be doing business, will be looking for a vaccine. What you cannot do without is the patent, because the patent is the net on which people walk, knowing that the patent will protect them. And that's the banks that lend the money. That's the investor that put the money. That's the CEO who wants his bonus. That's the guy who wants to get his salary and pay the mortgage. His wife or her husband who knows that without that money they will not be able to feed the kids. You see, all that chain depends on that net. And if that safety net called patent is taken away, good luck next year when you want to have for the next pandemic, because we all know there will be another pandemic.
Now, what I meant to ask before I broke out was that this all seems easier to break than to fix. Once it's broken, I can see how this trust can be destroyed in just a second by opening one single intellectual property. But then I guess it's very difficult to restore it. It would be very complicated, if at all possible, to somehow build it back. I think this has to do with the nature of illusions. Once faith is lost, it's practically impossible to restore it.
Faith is not the only issue. The issue is that based on that faith, you sleepwalk. If you cannot sleepwalk, you will not produce anything. If you have to be all the time looking at you behind your shoulder, who is following you, and this is a metaphor for the vaccine, for the patent of the vaccine, the whole idea to take away the patent, the destruction is not only a domino effect. It is a domino effect to the future. There will be no future because you will have listen. It is a fact. The only ones who made vaccines that were successful were private companies. The other two vaccines that were half made by states, which were not, because they were made by private companies under the state, the Russian and the Chinese, are not exactly the most successful story of the whole vaccines created. Anyway, we will have, as I say, we will have a next pandemic, and we will have, and we need that there will be vaccines for the next pandemic. Will this issue of the patents, is it a problem because there is not enough money, or the patent, or we need to the poorer countries? Okay, pay the pharmaceutical companies more. Again, you can tax them more if you want, but remember, the more you tax not only in money, the more you tax you make it harder for them to create, the less results we will have. Greed has proven as a very good misalgic remedy. If I feel greed, I am ready to sacrifice many sufferings to get there. If I take out the carrot at the end of the process, misalgically, I will stop doing anything.
Well, we've said this before in different videos, but I think it's worth remembering it now. Money works as a symbol of suffering and relief. The money involved in all these processes stands for the suffering involved and the reliefs that are expected after the sufferings, right?
But money is the result of suffering. Yes, it's the way we froze for suffering, and then it's used for reliefs. So it's just an accounting issue. Yes, it's better. I prefer to make money so I can then use it for relief. And some people says, something is not worth for me the whole suffering to get the money to get the relief. I prefer to stay with the suffering I have now. These are the two views. But when you're talking about in big numbers, you better hit it right. If you would ask people in September if they should take out the patents from the companies that were looking for the vaccines, how many people would have said yes? 3, 4, 5? Suddenly, now that there are enough vaccines, they all become magnanimous, and they have lofty ideas. Yes.
Very well. We'll go back to this subject, I'm sure, as the news develop, but it's interesting enough as far as we got today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.